I was unhappy in my marriage for a long time, and I wasn't allowed childcare. I asked him in December of 2021 if I could have a nanny and if I could go back to school, and he said multiple things, because we had a dance class every week, and so every week we would sit in the truck and talk. Sometimes we didn't even go. We went to the dance one time, and the rest we just sat in the truck for like a month, for like 4 weeks, 4 days out of the month. And we talked about this topic like 4 times. And the first time, he was like, I don't know, how does that work? And I was just like, we have $100,000 in the bank. It's like, I don't know, $5,000 for a semester. A nanny, if I got 15 hours a week of a nanny at $15 an hour, that would be $15,000 for the whole year. And he was like, I don't want to lower my standard of living. That's another quote that he says. So the first one was, I don't know, how does that work? Or it wasn't even I don't know, it was, how does that work? The second one was, I don't want to lower my standard of living. And then every time I asked, he was just like, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, ugh. Then in January of 2022, so a month after I started asking, he started yelling. And he started yelling at me for like different things. And he started being like, I'm trying to remember, what was he yelling about? I think he wanted, like, he was telling me to apologize for something, and I was like, I only apologize when I'm sorry for something, and I'm not going to apologize for something that I'm not sorry for. And he was like, you need to be more grateful for what I do. And I was just like, I also do a lot of things. I don't need to be grateful to you for money. I am raising these children like we agreed on, you know? And he didn't do any house chores or anything. I watched the kids. I did the cleaning. At that point, the house was starting to get really messy, and then for the rest of the year, it was like pretty bad. But up to that point, before I started asking if I could go on my own, like go out and do something, because Max was going to be in preschool, and I just wanted a part-time thing, and he was saying no. Before that, I had everything under control. But then when I started to ask for a little bit of freedom, and he said no, then I started to be like, wait, what? How have I done all this, and you're not going to let me have a little bit of freedom? Like $15,000 for a year of a part-time nanny, because I didn't want to put him in daycare, because I'm against daycare for personal reasons, and he had known this since before we were married. We had agreed upon having children and having me stay home with them since I made the lesser salary. Blah, blah, blah. We had also agreed on waiting 2 years to have kids. But then he said I was acting crazy on birth control and asked me to get off of it. And then when I switched birth control, I got pregnant. I was not planning to. And so then I was like, well, I guess I'm staying home now, not in 2 years. And I did. And we had agreed upon it, and it was fine. And I did a great job. And when I just started asking for the ability to leave the home, he said no. Things got worse and worse. I asked his family for help in February of 2022, so a month after he started yelling. I said, hey, I need help with your son. He's yelling. And they were like, oh, deal with that between you guys. And I was just like, I can't. Like, I'm being yelled at. I'm trying to raise kids. Like, he's like yelling and for hours and hours and hours. And I was just like, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Like, I'm not gonna... Like, I wasn't answering him. Sometimes I hid on my bed under the blankets, and he just stayed there and yelled, and I just, like, put my fingers in my ears. Sometimes I just shut my door and lock it, and he would be there. I'd turn on the music. Like, I was trying to just be like, stop yelling at me. And he was like, you're ungrateful. You're abusive. And I was just like, no, I'm not. And I just wanted to leave the home. And so I was defending myself. And with my counselor at the time, like, we were talking about autonomy and like how it was okay for me to want to leave the home, and how these things I was asking for were legit. And my husband was like, I hate your counselor, he's so blah blah blah, and said all these awful things about him. Things got really bad in March, so a month after I asked his parents for help and they said no. And I tried a few times. I called his mom a couple times when he was yelling. She could hear him yelling, and she was just like, you need to work on that between the two of you. I called multiple times. Anyway, so a month after that, in March, is when I went home to my parents in Burley. They met Max, who was 3, and they had never met him since he was born. They had met the girls like once each when they were babies, and they never met Max because, again, I was estranged from my family because my parents are abusive. And my dad last tried to be physically abusive. He didn't try, he grabbed me by the throat at 27 the last time. And then I was like, bye, we're done, and I cut him off. Then I got married, he wasn't invited, my mom wasn't invited. They showed up anyway, but they weren't in the parents' role, they were just sitting in the audience. I didn't even invite them there, and they showed up wearing matching clothes to make it look like they were a bridal party. I didn't have a bridal party because I didn't have any friends. Well, I did have friends, but at that time I did have friends, but no, I didn't invite them to be a bridal party. I had my friend act as my mom and her husband act as my dad, even though they were my age at the wedding. I don't know why I'm going into all this detail. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to say I introduced my parents to my son, who they had never met, at age 3 in March of 2022 because I was trying to go see if I could depend on them and like be like, hey, I'm in a bad spot. Could you watch my kids so I can go back to school since I'm not allowed to have a nanny, you know? Because I'm like, well, maybe they could be a nanny or whatever. But then I met them in March of 2022, and I was just like, no, not safe. My mom has not changed. No, not a good idea. Bad idea. So I regretted going there. Then she started showing up at my kids' soccer games in Pocatello, and my husband was like, this is what you get, this is what you get. And each time I was like so stressed. I was like, like, I don't want to go to the soccer game. My mom texted that she's gonna be there, and he's just like, this is what you get, this is what you get. And I was just like, oh crap. And I was like, can you please tell my mom not to come? He was like, no, this is what you get. And I was just like, crap. So I was already fighting with him at home. He was screaming at me at home in addition to us arguing. I never raised my voice because that is one thing I've sworn I would never do. I would never hit, and I would never yell, and I have stuck by that, and that is what I have done. One time I did scream, and I was like, ah, and I snapped the colored pencils that were in my hand because he wouldn't stop yelling, and I was like, snap, and I threw him, and I was like, I will destroy the things I love to get you to stop yelling at me. Leave me alone. And that was the one time that I did. I literally screamed, snapped my pencil, and he goes, you're psychotic. And I was just like, yeah, that was a little bit of a flip out, but he wouldn't stop yelling. Like, he would not stop yelling. Like, yell, and he'd be like, you're psychotic. You need to apologize. You need to be grateful. You're abusive. And I was like, how am I abusive? And he's like, you nitpick at me. You're ungrateful. And you always say all these like things that you're unhappy with me. And I was like, that's not abuse. That's because I'm unhappy and I would like to be able to leave the home. And he was just like, I can't believe you, blah, blah, blah. You're just like your mother, la, la, la. And like just going off all the time. And I was starting to lose my mind. So they're showing up at the soccer games in March and April. In April, I was just like, oh, I can't handle this. I already had asked everyone I knew for help. There was nobody left to ask for help. Then I found, at the very end of April, I found a text message on his phone from my mom saying, oh, you're such a good dad. We need to get Casey away from the kids. I have a friend who's a psychiatrist in Rexburg. If you want to take Casey to Rexburg, he promises he'll lock her up for 30 days at the psych ward if you can get her to Rexburg, which was like probably 2.5 hours away from us. So I saw this text while he's sleeping, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble. What are they communicating? And then I was just like, no, this is just my mom. This is not him, because there was no text from him at the first, which I think they had been texting. I think he deleted it. But anyway, at that time I was like, no, this text is out of nowhere. There's no context. There's no other text history. And I was like, but why does he have my mom's phone number? He shouldn't even know my mom's phone number. They've never spoken, ever. And so I woke him up and I was like, what is this text? And he's like, I don't know. She's insane. You know, she's insane. Like, why would you think I would have any idea? And I was just like, oh, okay, yeah. It wasn't him. Whatever. But then over the next like week, he started saying things like, I'm afraid of your mom. I think your mom's going to steal our children. I think your mom said she's going to call CPS, which was in the text, that she was going to call CPS if she saw me with the kids, which didn't make any sense. Trying to see which exit to get off of, and I don't know. Anyway, Okay. So she did threaten CPS, and he's like, I think she's gonna take the kids. And then he started saying things like, I've seen your parents stalking us in our town. Like, they've driven like an hour from their town to our town. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I've seen them. Like, they're stalking us. I think your dad has a gun. I think they're gonna break in and steal our children. And I was just like, what? My dad doesn't have a gun. He's never touched a gun. He's not gonna have a gun. And he's like, I think he does. I think he does. I was like, no, he doesn't. And he's like, I know your mom. She's psychotic. She's crazy. She's gonna take our kids. And I was like, okay. And so I did get roped into that a little bit. And I was just like, okay, yeah, he's not feeling safe. He's clearly losing it. Like, he says he sees them multiple times. And then on May 1st or May 2nd, I think it was May 2nd of 2022, we were cleaning our house because he said my mom was going to call CPS on Monday. And I don't remember what day this was, maybe Saturday or Sunday. And so we were home cleaning. We had our kids in Blackfoot because he said, your mom is going to take our kids. And I was like, okay, they've never had a sleepover in their entire lives, ever. I don't do sleepovers. But because he was so worked up about it, I was like, okay, they can sleep at their grandparents' house because my husband thinks my mom is going to take our kids. And he thinks my dad has a gun. My parents were even divorced. They weren't even married. But he was so convinced that something bad was going to happen to the kids. I was like, okay, put them in Blackfoot. That's fine. So we came home to our house, 45 minutes away, and we were cleaning it. While we were cleaning it, this is at night, the blinds were up. He looked out the window. He sees a Jeep driving slowly. I'm shaking just talking about this. Driving slowly in our cul-de-sac. That's going to make me cry. Damn it. I don't want to cry. I want to talk normal. Okay. I'm not gonna cry. Hang on. Okay. Just say the story. Okay. He saw a Jeep. He goes, that's your mom. He ran out of the house. He ran out the front door. He was screaming and waving his arms, saying, get out of here. Chasing this Jeep, running down the sidewalk. Or the road, I don't remember, running. He runs back into the house and he goes, out of breath. I've never seen this man run. And he goes, that was your mom. She was in the passenger seat. They had Burley plates. Her friend must have been driving. And I was just like, first I was just like, no way. And I was just like, at first I was like, that's not true. Like, that, I don't agree. And I was like, that wasn't Burley plates. That wasn't my mom. And then I was just like, he's losing it. I was like, this guy is losing it. Like, he's petrified of my mom. And then thirdly, I was like, is he lying? And then I was like, no. And then I started to go insane. Those are all of my trains of thought. And number 4, when I was like, no. I was like, is he lying? Is he making this up to scare me? Because I was a little on edge. I was like, this is behavior I have never seen from my husband. I've never seen this behavior. Like, December, I asked to go back to school. He says, how does that work? I don't want to lower my standard of living. He says, no, we have $100,000 in the bank. He says, no debt, no mortgage. We have 4 cars paid off. He said, no. January, he starts yelling. February, I ask his parents for help repeatedly. March, I go to Burley. April, they come and watch us at the soccer games, and I'm just losing my mind. I'm like, I can't see my mom every week. Like, I wish she wouldn't come. And he's saying, this is what you get. This is what you get. And I'm just like, oh, fuck. And one of the soccer games I didn't even go to, even though I was the coach. I was just like, Cody, you can go, coach. I'm not going if my mom's there. And I can't tell her not to, like, I can't talk to her. And he was just like, how dare you? How dare you? And I was just like, I'm sorry. And I left. And that's when they apparently talked, I guess. I don't know. That was April May is when I found the text. I think it was May or the end of April. And then he said we needed to leave the kids in Blackfoot. Then we're cleaning our house. Then he sees a car outside. God, I hate that picture in my mind because that was the first, I'm going to say this clearly. That was the first time in my life where I went like this. Like, not externally. This was inside my mind. You know when you spin as a little kid to get dizzy? I started doing that in my mind because I was like, what if he's lying to me? We're going to jump ahead so I can calm down. We're going to jump ahead, like, from, let's see, right now we're at May of 2022, May 2nd, 2022. We're going to jump forward to March of 2024. And I will tell you, almost 2 years later, I found his phone, which proved to me, those almost 2 years later, that he was involved on May 2nd, 2022, about what I'm about to tell you. And when I thought, is he involved in this? And I was like, no, he's not involved. It's just my mom. It's just my mom. Calm down. On May 2nd, 2022 is when I started just being like, no. And I started just like, the internal feeling is what I'm showing externally. I'm showing you shaking my head. I can't see. I'm just shaking my head and I'm dizzy. I'm showing you that because that's how I felt inside, because I was afraid he was lying, but then I was like, I also went to him to help me from my mom. I was like, he was like the barrier between my mom, and so when he acted scared of my mom, I was like, my first reaction was like, no, that's not her. It's okay, that's not her. My second reaction was, he is losing it. My third reaction was, is he lying about this? And my fourth reaction was, no, he's not lying about this, because if he's lying about this, I am in danger. Because my mom was to some extent involved. I thought, and I was pretty sure, because she texted him, so she was involved, and I was like, well, she's involved. And I was like, what do I do? And so I looked at option 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I was like, well, option 4 was, no, he's not involved. Option 3 was, is he involved? And I was like, no. So no, he's not involved. So I go back to option 1 and 2, and then I was like, option 1, I doubted that. I was like, that's not her. Like, that's not my mom. I don't know anybody with the Jeep. I didn't see Burley plates. And then number 2, I was like, he's acting really afraid, and I was afraid for him. And I was afraid of his mental health and for his mental health. And I had already watched him almost kill himself in June of 2017 when I was 9 months pregnant with Zoe, and we hadn't announced our pregnancy to anybody because we had no contact with either family at that point, as far as I knew. We were living in Washington. No one knew I was pregnant. And then I called them and said, please come, when he almost killed himself. So that's when he started having contact with them, because I was like, you have to establish a relationship with your family. I have 2 babies now, because Zoe got born right after that. And I was like, I have 2 babies. I can't help you with your mental health, but you're clearly, like, you need help. You need support. I can't do everything. Like, let's have your parents, you know? And then I suggested that we move back to Idaho because his mental health was so bad, and I watched him almost kill himself due to sexual assault from when he was a kid that resurfaced when he was an adult, and he almost killed himself over it, is what he told me. I'm trying so hard to say this in a way that people will listen to me, and sometimes I'll be like, you have to listen to my story. Listen, please listen. And then I could never say it coherently, and sometimes when I would be saying the story, I would be sobbing. And right now I'm crying. I'm not sobbing. I'm just kind of crying, and I have it held in. My voice doesn't sound good. I sound emotional, but sometimes I was like bawling and trying to tell parts of the story, and I couldn't even put the whole thing together. And sometimes there were police there because I haven't even gotten to May 3rd. I only stopped at May 2nd, and then I get stuck in this whirlwind, and I'm like, okay, focus. And I try to focus, and I focus on what I have right in front of me. And so when I was worried that he was involved, I shut everything down. I no longer asked to go back to school. I canceled ISU, where I wanted to go to school, because I had, like, he said no, but I still got on the waiting list for childcare at ISU anyway, because I was like, maybe I can convince him. But in, like, around April, May, I gave up, and I canceled it, and I said, never mind, I'm not doing school. And I was worried about him, and I was worried about me, and I was also worried in the back of my mind, is he involved? But that was like deep, 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 deep down. So I was like, we're not going to deal with that. But it was in there, and it was doing things, scrambling in my brain, but it was not a conscious awareness, because my conscious awareness, I said, no, he's not involved. Subconsciously, it started scrambling my brain. Okay. May 2nd. So he ran out the door chasing a Jeep saying, it's your mom, your dad's gonna break in, your parents are gonna take our kids. And I was like, he's losing it. And then I was just like, I never recovered from that, because I had like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like I had like multiple personalities, but I had like an on switch and an off switch. Sometimes it would get turned on and I'd be like, I'm in trouble. And then sometimes I'd just be like, turn it off, and I would turn it off. You know, the awareness that he was involved. And then sometimes the on switch would turn itself on, and then I would just be like, nope, and I would shut it down. I would turn it off. And then it became uncontrollable, where it would turn on, and I would go into like a mental breakdown. I used to call it psychosis because I thought it was called psychosis. But I was informed by my counselor and psychiatrist that it's not psychosis because I didn't meet the criteria. But it felt like I was losing my mind. I didn't have it. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything that wasn't there. There were no voices. It was just me not being able to turn off the I think he's involved. Because at that point, this makes me angry and it's embarrassing. But like, when I turned down that like, it's not him on May 2nd, when he chased that car out, I was like, I have to help him. He's not well. And I decided he wasn't involved. He was sick. It was mental health. He wasn't okay, right? Because I wasn't going to have my mom and my husband working together. I wasn't going to have that text between them mean that they were actually working together against me. I wasn't like, no, I can deal with one bad person. It's not going to be two of them. It was one of them. It was just my mom. It was not him, right? So, okay. So it's embarrassing. So it's hard to say, and it makes me angry because I'm like, why the makes me so angry. But I'm just embarrassed. But I got really like... I want to say 2 words: protective and loving. And I was like, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to help him. I'm going to save him from my mom. My mom is making him go insane. I'm going to save him. I'm going to rescue him. And everything else went away. My desire to go to school went away. My desire to leave home went away. Everything that I had wanted before, like December until May, everything else went away. And I was just like, I don't need any of that. Obviously, I'm fine. I'm fine at home. And I was like, I'm gonna save this marriage. And my mom's after us. We're in trouble. I need a break. Hold on. Okay. So I went to sleep that night, having decided I was going to help him. My mom supposedly had just driven through our cul-de-sac. That's what he said. We go to sleep. Get a phone call at 2:31 in the morning. It's the police. I woke up and I woke up as I was talking on the phone. I was like, what? Hello? It's like, this is the police department. And I'm groggy. And I was just like, I have to leave. I have to run. I don't know. I don't have a reason why. I was asleep, basically. So I didn't even have my contacts in. So I have to go. He's like, what? What happened? And I don't know what happened. I was barefoot. I had no contacts in. I went to the front door, grabbed the keys, went outside to get in my car. And there are police there. Behind me, barricading me in, and throughout the parking lot. And they swarmed me as I was trying to get in my car, shining their lights in my eyes, screaming at me, absolutely screaming at me. And I was not awake, and I couldn't see anyway, and I don't know what I was doing, and I had the keys, and I was just like... Then I was thinking something like, my mom called the police on us. It was my mom in the car. She said she was going to call police, or she said she was going to call CPS in that text message to Cody. And she did call 911. And I told myself, this is just a play. This isn't real. And I slipped into, like, this is a play. That's for another day. I don't want to talk about that right now. But in my mind, I was like, this is just a play. This isn't real. And at that same time, he went to talk to the police away from me. I went in the house. He went to talk to them without me. And he was taking a while. And I was in the house, and I was just like, that little number 4 popped up, and it was like, he's involved. The one from before when I was like, I think he's involved. No, he's not involved. So that kept creeping in, like, he's involved. Why is he talking to the police outside? We're going to pause and skip forward to March of 2024 again, when I got the police footage from that day. I didn't know you could get police footage until I found out after he filed for divorce. I got the police footage from a year and a half earlier. And he was talking to the police, asking them to take me to the mental hospital. Okay, so yeah, the footage shows that he was outside talking to me, like, can you take her in? And they're like, no, she hasn't done anything wrong. And he's like, can you take her to the mental hospital? And he's like, and they're like, no, can't you take her? And he's like, no, she would never forgive me. And they're like, well, if she's showing signs, you should take her in. And he's like, well, can't you guys do it? And they're like, no, we can't. And at that time, this was a few minutes, I, in my mind, in the house, had that little thought pop in, he's involved. And then I was like, no, he's not. So what did I do next? I go back to number 1 and 2 of my scenario, and I thought, I have to protect him. He's in danger. My mom is going to hurt him. And then I thought, what if my mom told them that it's him? What if he's talking to them because he's in trouble and I need to help him? I was like, what if I need to distract? See, I'm in la la land, because I went to the, is he involved? And then I was like, no. So what's the absolute equal and opposite of he's involved? He's in trouble and I gotta help him. And so I was like, I gotta help him. So what did I do? I went outside. First of all, I tried to grab him and like walk him back into the house. And then I'm telling myself, it's just a play. It's just a play. So I was trying to imagine I'm in a play. Like, if I'm in a play, how would I rescue this man? So I tried to get him and I tried to pull him back into the house. That wasn't working. And I was acting strange, yes, because my world was crumbling internally. And I was like, there were like 4 different scenarios in my mind, and I was like, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was just like chaos. When I couldn't get to a place where I felt like he was safe and he wouldn't come inside, I ran. So I ran from the police. They hurt me a lot when they caught me. And then the firefighters were there. There were like at least 2 fire trucks and a lot of cop cars. There were already a couple in my cul-de-sac, but I ran out the cul-de-sac and there were a lot of cop cars and 2 fire trucks. And I had ran and I was like knocking on a neighbor's door because I needed help, and I was trying to get away and distract away from my husband.
All right, there's that for you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you, you too. I was trying to save his life in my play, and so I ran. So they hurt me. The cop that was holding my arm was twisting it in a way that made me scream in agony. Like, it wasn't a choice for my mouth to make the sound. He was like, he had my arm behind my back and he was like, I don't know how or what, but there was a twist or a movement of my elbow that made my voice scream very loudly. Actually, I'm going this way. And I think it was torture. He did it for a while, and I was like, please just put me in the cop car. And to the firefighters, I was like, you guys are seeing this, why aren't you doing anything? But I was screaming. I was like, help me, he's hurting me. And he'd just twist it, and I'd be like, and I like scream, and he'd be like, shut up, settle down. And I was just like, and then he'd twist, and I'd be like, bah! And he'd be like, shut up, and I'd be like, and I was like dying, because he was like telling me to be quiet, and then he'd like tweak, and no one could see it because my arms were behind my back. And that was that. He hurt me and like continued to torture me. And I was just like, how are those men watching me and doing nothing? Those firefighters are supposed to be good. Anyway. Then they took me to the psych ward. And they sedated me. My husband took a picture. I found a picture on his phone of me sedated. I also found the text messages from that same day. Number 1, he told his mother, Jessica, my sister, called the police on Casey and they're taking her in. And number 2, his mom was like, oh my gosh, are you going to go be with her? And he goes, no, I don't think they'd let me in anyway. So he told them he wasn't going to go see me. He had a picture of me at the hospital, unconscious, on his phone. And he never spoke to me, but he did take a photo of me. So he was physically there. It was his phone. He had a photo of me unconscious. And this really pisses me off because he really likes domination porn. And so seeing that, I was just like, is this like a porn thing where you told people you weren't coming and you didn't even talk to me? You didn't help me while they were torturing me down the street. Like a couple houses away. Didn't even come for minutes while they were there torturing me. He didn't do anything. He told everyone he didn't, in the text messages, he wasn't going to go to the hospital. And then he was there and he took a photo. And I was like, is this a domination thing? Like, yeah, because when I would complain about, this is too much, but when I would complain about us not having sex ever, and I have always thought he was gay since our honeymoon, because he never wanted to have sex with me, he never tried, and he'd always be like, you don't initiate. And I was like, I have a vagina, how do I initiate sex? Literally, just try something. What do I and then he would always, this is way too much information, I'm gonna regret saying this. He always wanted me on top, and I was like, I hate being on top. I am not a man. I don't want to be doing this. This sucks. And then like sometimes when I would, like one time specifically when I like would complain about it, he grabbed my arms, threw me up against the wall, and did things that I did not like. And I was like, stop, I don't like this. And he's like, yes you do, this is what you want, this is what you want, isn't it? And I was just like, no, I don't like this. Ugh. And so everything was like domination like that. Like, yeah. When we were trying to make a baby, which was the first baby was on accident when he told me I was crazy on birth control. Then tried to have a couple of kids, and then after that it was gone, and I was just like, he got a vasectomy and he was pretty much done. Anyway, my point with this is just like, when I would complain and he would just be like, he would blame me about it. I don't know how I even got talking about this. But, when I saw that photo, so I saw the photo again when I found his phone in March of 2024. No. Sorry, I had the year wrong. Every time I've said March 2024, it was actually March of 2023. So it was 1 year, not 2 years. So all that stuff earlier that I said that it was 2 years later, it was only 1 year later. It was March of 2023 because my accident was February 2023. I found his phone in March of 2023. Approximately. So yeah, I was wrong. It wasn't 2, it was 1. When I found his phone and I found that, it made me feel sick and disgusted. And I never knew he came to the hospital. He never told me he came to the hospital. He told people in text messages he didn't go to the hospital. He clearly did. And he didn't come to interact with me. He waited until I was sedated and then took a photo of me. Which I felt it just felt just as disgusting as all of the other things that had to do with sex and porn. When I say domination porn, that's all I'm going to say. That's it. Domination. Nothing more. I don't need to go into details. Domination. And it felt like that when I saw the photo of me in the hospital unconscious, and I had never known he had ever been to the hospital. Okay? So I'm in the psych ward. I told everyone what happened. I said, well, we were home cleaning because my mom threatened to call CPS, and my husband ran outside chasing a car out of our cul-de-sac saying it was my mom in a Jeep with burly plates and that her friend was driving. And he said he thinks my dad is gonna break in, and my dad and mom are working together even though they're divorced because they showed up together to the soccer games with my kids. So he says they're now back together, and he thinks they're gonna take our kids. And so I was afraid, and when the cop showed up I thought it was my mom, and so I ran, like my mom attacking us, trying to get our kids, and I ran away because I got overwhelmed, you know? And I was like, you can call him and ask him if he ran out of the cul-de-sac chasing my mom out of the cul-de-sac, see if he answers. See if he confirms it. So they call him, and they came back and they're like, yeah, we asked him about it, and he, like, your story checks out. And I was like, okay, thank you. And so then they let me go, right? When I called him, and I still didn't know he was involved at this point, in my fairy tale world, I am rescuing him, and he's rescuing me. We are saving each other from my mom. When I called him, I was like, they said you can pick me up at 9 a.m. And he goes, I thought you were in there for 30 days. And I was like, no, it was like 2 days. And he's like, they told me 30 days. And I was like, well, they told me you could pick me up at 9 a.m. And then he repeated that so many times, like over the next year. Because I was like, they told me you were going to be in there for 30 days. I was like, well, I just told them what happened. I told them that my mom's after us. I told them that you chased her out of our cul-de-sac. They said they called you and talked to you, and that my story checked out, and that they let me go. And then later, he would always be like, I got you out of the psych ward. I'm the only reason you're out. They made me promise to watch you. They made me promise to keep everyone safe. And I was like, they let me out because I told them what happened, and they said, okay. Not because you convinced them to let me go. It's because I said, hey, my mom's harassing us, and my ex ran out of the house chasing her car, and I got afraid. And then in the night, she called 911, and I got afraid, and I ran. That's what so we always had that argument for the next year. So I'm home, maybe like May 5th. So they called like 2:30 in the morning, which I guess was technically May 3rd, which is the anniversary of my twins dying. I delivered my twins on May 3rd, 2016. So I was already going through that as well. Trying to make sure I don't get any details. I'm like going back like it's a calendar. So I'm home, maybe May 5th or May 6th. I asked him if we could go to Blackfoot to see the kids. And I took a couple videos while I was there, and I talked to as many people as I could because I wanted them to see I wasn't crazy. Because I was like, my mom's going to tell everyone I'm crazy because that's her go-to. And so I talked to people, I took videos, I tried to record more things. Around that time, I talked about child abuse, and at this time, I am fully on board. It is fully my mother. My husband is not involved whatsoever. The poor man is in danger for my mother. I am afraid for him. I'm afraid of his mental health. I'm afraid of his breakdowns. I'm afraid of him being too afraid, so I try to be tough and be like, I gotta watch him so he doesn't have a mental breakdown. Because he is scary, you know? So we talked to everybody in Blackfoot, took videos, get my kids back. But what starts to happen over the next couple weeks, number one, he goes, my family's gonna have family pictures in Blackfoot. And I was just like, I just had the most traumatic thing possible happen to me. I just went to a psych ward because I ran from the police. I cannot go to a family picture and smile. And I was like, why would they choose right now? Like, this is the worst possible time. I've been out for like a week. And he was like, well, they can't reschedule her. And I was just like, I can't smile in a family picture right now. And so we got in an argument, and he said I was being selfish. And I was just like, I'm not being selfish. I cannot physically do that. And he's like, then we'll just do it without you and you'll ruin everything. And I was just like, we argued about that. Cause I was just like, how can you, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was like, there's no way you can't have a family picture. They did it. They took the family picture. And then so from the time I got out of the hospital, within 2 weeks, I started to have these little things where I was just like, not as terrifying as he's involved and I would like flip out, but I started to be like, he might be involved. Okay, maybe not. He might be involved. He might not, but he could be involved, but maybe not. Probably not, but he could be involved, maybe not, right? And so I gave myself a ton of leeway to be like, let yourself think of the possibility that maybe he could be involved, but probably he's innocent, right? Those ideas started popping up, like with the family pictures and stuff. I was just like, this is insane. And we were fighting about it, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, I don't ever try to be high maintenance or anything. So like that for me was just like, I don't do this. So if you think I'm being high maintenance by saying I can't take a picture right now because I just got out of the psych ward from running from the cops because of my mom, I can't smile right now. Plus they hadn't told me about it, so I hadn't bought any clothes, but guess what? They had ordered clothes for my kids weeks before. So if they had the clothing, they never told me about. Nobody told me. I didn't get to choose my own kids' clothing because I wasn't. But turns out on his phone, his family thought we were getting divorced. I had no idea that they were thinking we were getting divorced. So when they had family pictures without me, I'm pretty sure everyone thought we were already getting divorced. We weren't even separated. I didn't know we were going to be separated. When they took the family picture, I was starting to be like, what is going on? Am I being dramatic? He's not really on my side. I do need to protect him, you know? And like, the next few weeks were kind of like a blur, and the kids finished school, and I had told him, like, I was still paranoid at night that somebody was going to call 911 again. And I was talking about child abuse a ton on my YouTube channel, and I was writing a ton, and I was fully on board that it was my mom. But I'd have those little sneaky thoughts like, he could be involved. I hope not. Probably not. So then, when school ended, I had decided that I would take the kids back east, and he was fully on board. He's like, yes, you're good at traveling. I travel with the kids all the time. And he was like, yeah, good. Go get your brain back, whatever. And so I was just like, yeah. And we left. It was perfect. He didn't fight with me once. He didn't yell at me once. The kids talked to him throughout the day, and every night before bed. We explored all over the U.S. We drove all the way back to New York and then down to D.C. and back. We were gone for a month. Everything was fine. And I was just like, this is fantastic. And I was like, oh, everything's fixed. When I got back, it was July. So we left the end of May, maybe like June 1st. We got back like the beginning of July, right before Zoe's birthday, because I was like, we're not going to have a birthday without her dad. So we got back to Idaho in July. And the second I got back, he started yelling at me like day one. And I was like, this is not good. So then I was trying to figure out how to fix the marriage and get him to stop yelling at me. And my main concern was, why does he yell at me all the time? And in the back of my mind was, my mom's going to come after us. But that was in the back of my mind. And I was fine, like, emotionally. Like, my mom was out of my mind. She did, like, out of the back of my mind. She was not in my mind. Although she was in the back of my mind. But she wasn't doing anything. Whatever. I asked, so after he started yelling at me, I don't know when he moved out. I don't know if I asked him to move out before I left on the trip in May. I feel like he probably, like, I feel like that's unlikely. I'm like, we always say it was May of 2022 when we split, but I'm like, I don't think he moved out until I came back, like July or August of 2022. I don't really know when he moved out. But when I came back in July and he started yelling like day one, I was just like, are you, like, can you move out, like, until you figure yourself out? And they'd be like, you're so abusive, you're keeping me from the kids. I was like, no, you yell at me constantly. Like, you were fine when we were gone. Like, you treated me like a human being. You didn't yell. You were so good with the kids from a distance. Like, that's what I wanted. I thought we were working on things. I thought we were fixing everything. You know, like, I thought everything was going to be better. And that month away was, like, so good. He was so easy to deal with. So he moved out, I'm going to say July. July of 2022. And things went normally for a couple months. I had a trip planned for October of 2022, taking Capri and Zoe to California to a Pink concert. Then I invited him and I was like, do you want to come? Like, so I was like, I don't think I can leave Max. And he's like, oh, I can come with Max and then we can leave the day before the concert because he was only going to come for like 3 days, and then I was going to stay for like 4 days, like a total of 4 days or 5 days. And he's like, I'll just take Max back for the last day. And I was like, okay. The day before our flight to California, so we had me and the girls on one ticket together, and then him and Max with the, like, they were going to fly out with us, but they were coming back on a different flight, and the tickets were non-refundable and you couldn't change anything. And the day before the flight, he goes, I can't do this, you're so abusive, I can't go. And I was like, what? He's like, just leave Max with me, just go. And I was like, I'm not leaving Max. I've never left Max. I've never even left him overnight. Like, I'm not gonna leave him for 4 days. No way. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going. And he's like, you can just cancel the trip. And I was like, I'm not canceling the trip. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, I'll just buy Max a new flight out of my money. Because we had $500 each a month of spending money. And he was like, whatever. So I ended up calling the airlines, and I talked to the guy, and he switched Max's flight and gave me a refund, even though they were non-refundable flights. He was like, I feel so bad for you. And he put Max on my flight home and refunded me Cody's ticket. I didn't pay anything, which was, at that time, it was like, to me, I was just like, this is amazing. Like, this is what God wants me to do. Like, it was so, like, it was great. And then the flight, like, it was hard to do. Like, I had to change my mindset in one day to be like, okay, I have to do this all alone. I did it. And I took 3 kids on a dolphin boat cruise. I took them to a Pink concert. I took them to the beach. Like, we had so much fun. And I did such a good job on my own with them that I was just like, I can do this. Even if he throws a wrench in my plans, I can still do this. Like, I'm still doing okay. While I was gone, he threatened divorce. And he said I didn't care about him. And I was like, no, it's not that I don't care about you. I'm just trying to give my kids the vacation that I promised for Capri's birthday thing, because she loved Pink, you know? And I was like, I'm not ignoring you. I was just focused on the kids. And he's like, you don't care. I'm divorcing you. And I got all frantic, and I started to put more attention on him. I'm like, I'm sorry. That's not what I'm trying to do, you know? And I was apologetic, and I just was terrified of getting divorced. I did not want to get divorced. I was trying so hard to work on my marriage, and I was like, no, we're not getting divorced. I will work on this. But also, if you're going to cancel the flight the day before I go, I'm still going to go. But I'm sorry that I was ignoring you. I'm going to try to focus on you as well. And please don't divorce me. I don't want to get divorced. I am trying really, really hard, etc., etc. Every time he would say divorce, I would like shake. So that was October. Little did I know he had hired a divorce attorney in August. Well, I did know, actually, because it came across on my credit card. It said such and such law office, and it had a deposit. And then I asked him about it. He had taken me off of our bank account in July, so I only, like, he transferred me $500 a month, and that was it. He took us out of our finances. He made 6 figures, so we had like 10 grand a month, and he gave me 500, and then the rest he kept. Where I had been in charge of finances before that, I had been the one to pay off all of our debt and to like do everything having to do with money. I did that for 10 years. And then he kicked me out in July, gave me like a little allowance, and then I saw the lawyer pop up, and then after August, he was like, well, it's just a retainer, it's just on pause, it's not gonna happen. And I was like, okay. And then sometimes he'd be like, I'm gonna file for divorce, and I'd be like, no, please don't. And he'd be like, yeah, it's on pause. You know, he'd go back and forth between I'm going to, I'm not, I'm going to, I'm not. And then he'd tell me things like, my lawyer says I need to document everything you say. My lawyer says we can only interact by text message and email. And I'd be like, stop. How are we supposed to fix our marriage if you're doing this? Because sometimes he'd be like, yeah, we're going to fix it. Sometimes he'd be like, we're not. And it just kept throwing me for a loop. And it just kept putting me into this like it was so hard. But then in October, when I went to California, I was just like, this is so good. But I didn't want my kids to be in a divorce home. I didn't want to give up. I was like, no, I can fix this. I can absolutely fix this. I can fix this. I can do this. I just need to gain my independence. And I went on the trip alone. And yeah, he's threatening divorce, but I'm trying to do what's right for me and for us. And then when I got home from that trip, he started yelling more and more and more. And I started to shut down. And I had a trip planned to Hawaii for Christmas, which I also paid for. I did 2 weeks in Hawaii. I did 1 week without him because he only took off 1 week of work, and then 1 week with him. And Hawaii was good, but he wouldn't stop yelling. I had been recording him yelling at me because my counselor asked me to multiple times. So I had recorded him yelling at me before in Idaho, and then on vacation in Hawaii in December, I recorded him yelling at me again multiple times. And I was just like, I can get through this. Like, I can do this. Like, you don't have to treat me like this. I'm allowed to be independent. We can work through this. And he'd be like, no, you're so selfish. It's never going to work. And I was like, yes, it is. I am not going anywhere. And he would always be like, after this, he'd be like, move out, just leave. I know you're going to abandon the kids. I was like, I'm not going to abandon the kids. And he'd be like, my lawyer and I are going to file for abandonment. And I was like, there's no such, I'm not abandoning the kids. And he's like, yep, you left them one night in August of 2022. And that's when I went to Utah to look for women's shelters because I needed help. This is when that's when he had his lawyer deposit. I came back and I saw that at the same time, like the same day. Like, I was driving back and I got home at like 1 p.m. and he had the lawyer deposit like at like noon or something. So it was like right as I was coming back. So he's like, yeah, you left. And I was like, I left for 1 day to go to Utah. I slept in my car and I came right back the next morning and they were gone. They had gone to the cabin. He didn't answer his phone for a few days. He kept the children from me. I was losing my mind because I'd never been away from them for more than like a day. And the only reason I did that was because I was trying to get help, because I kept having that little part of my mind be like, he's involved, he's involved, he's involved. And then sometimes when I would think that, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go get help. But then other times it'd be too overwhelming. And I'd be like, no, he's not involved, you know? Anyway, so he kept telling me they were going to file divorce for abandonment. And I was like, I didn't do abandonment. That's not possible. It's not going to happen. And then he'd be like, leave. I know you're going to leave. Leave the kids. I was like, I would never leave the kids. I need to get away from you, not the kids. And then I started talking like that. And I'd be like, I will get away from you. And he'd be like, you don't need to get away from me. And I'd be like, yes, I do, because you won't let me do anything. You won't let me do anything. You know? And that's all I would say. I'd just be like, I just wanted a little bit of freedom. I just want to be able to leave the house without kids sometimes. That's it. I just wanted a part-time nanny. $15,000 out of $100,000. I wanted 15 and I would have 20 hours a week. For $15,000, I could have 20 hours a week to do something else. And I was stuck on that point because I believed that was fair after everything I had done to raise those kids with no childcare. I was like, there's no reason if Zoe's in kindergarten, Max can be in preschool, I can have a little bit of time, I can go back to school or do something else. Because I literally had no free time. And so I stood on that and I was like, no. I have saved tons of money. I sold our other house for a good profit. I listed it for sale myself. We paid no commission on that. I made $250,000. I paid off our other mortgage, got updates to our house, pocketed $100,000 after paying off our mortgage, and we had cars, we had everything, and he had a 6-figure salary. And he wouldn't let me use a $15,000 for a part-time nanny. And he just wouldn't let me leave the home. And he was like, if you're not grateful, I'll take the kids. And I was like, it's not that I'm not grateful. I just would like to be able to leave and do something else sometime. All I did was take my kids to the gym because I paid for gym daycare. It cost me $100 a month, which is the only splurge I made. And then I would write and I would make YouTube videos. Those were the only 3 hobbies I had. So anyway, he kept threatening me November and December and January. And sometime in January, I slipped into that number 4 state of mind where I was like, he's involved, no, he's not. And I didn't come out. And it internally felt like this. Like, it felt like I was shaking my head inside, and I was just like dizzy, like I couldn't function because I was avoiding the fact that I thought he was involved and that I couldn't fix my marriage. And I thought he was involved in May 3rd, 2nd and 3rd of 2022. This is January of 2023. So I started making videos begging for help. And the way I survived was by telling myself, this isn't real, this is a play. And I would slip into my little play and be like, this is a play. And that is called depersonalization and derealization as a part of PTSD, dissociation. And after a few weeks like that, I wasn't leaving the house because I didn't trust myself even driving, because I was like, I know if I'm like this on the inside, I can't think straight. I could barely make it from point A to point B because I was so out of it. And I was asking him for help on text message, and he's like, I'm not going to help you. Get out of this yourself. And I had nowhere to go. I had no friends or family. I begged for help for multiple days, but I was in what I called psychosis, which was not truly psychosis, but it was some form of PTSD, dissociation, depersonalization, and derealization, and mental breakdown. And I tried to go back to Salt Lake, where I had gone to try to find a women's shelter. I tried to go back to Salt Lake, and I ended up on the wrong highway heading to Boise instead of Salt Lake. And I had a full-on mental break. Full-on mental break. And I ended up getting in a car accident, and he took the kids. And he told people I did it on purpose. And then he filed a restraining order, and he cited domestic violence as the reason he needed a restraining order from me. I showed up at the hearing by myself. I got a ride from a stranger. So I had a car accident in Boise. A stranger put me up in a hotel. A different stranger picked me up on the side of the road and ended up driving me back to Pocatello, where we got there just in time. We got there the night before the restraining order hearing or whatever. I walked into the courtroom by myself because obviously I had been in Boise and I was not able to get a lawyer. I had called a few, but it was really short time frame and I wasn't able to get a lawyer. And I showed up and the judge was like, well, what's your story? And I told him, and I was like, I was trying to get away from him. I couldn't get away from him, and I got in a car accident. And the judge is like, he kept calling me defendant, and he kept calling Cody father, and he'd be like, what do you think of this father? And what do you have to say for yourself, defendant? And I was just like, it seemed like they knew each other. I think they did. It was from his small town in Blackfoot. He had his lawyer. I had nobody. And eventually the judge was just like, you have 90 days, and he gave him a restraining order against me. For 90 days. Then he went on to file reports with the police and CPS against me, and then he would show his restraining order as well. He turned off my cell phone. He was on the account, I wasn't, which is weird because the whole marriage I had my own account that I only paid $25 a month. He paid the $60 a month. I didn't ever do that. I paid the $25 a month on a different carrier. But in October of 2021, for our anniversary, he offered to pay for my cell phone as his anniversary present. No, 22. Because it was only a few months, it wasn't a year. So it was, my car accident was February 23, so October of 2022, he offered to pay for my cell phone contract for our wedding anniversary. So that's when I turned my cell phone service over to him for the first time in a decade. I'd never had him have my phone service before. And then when I got in the car accident, he turned my cell phone off and then filed reports with CPS and the police. And then he filed for divorce and he put abandonment, like he'd always said. And when I showed up in court with a lawyer for the divorce hearing, which was after the restraining order, I got a lawyer for the second one. His lawyer was like, Your Honor, we didn't think she would be here today, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, because he asked him why they filed for abandonment. We didn't think she was going to be here today. I made it. So they changed it. They didn't file for abandonment in the end. Restraining order, divorce, filed for abandonment. It's about as far as I can think right now. I'm in a haze because once he took my kids, that's it. And I went into like this. Took him February 4th, 2023. It's now September 5th, 2024. I can't think about that for very long. I finally got phone calls around January 2024. It was almost a year. It was 11 months until I got to hear their voices. And it took him another 4 months, I think, to sign the divorce papers granting me supervised visitation. So I think that started, I'm not positive on that date. I think it started May of 2024. Supervised 3 hours a week, which he's now tried cutting down to 2. And we used to have 30 minutes a kid phone calls, which he's now dropping to 10 minutes a kid. I don't think there's anything I can say after that. He took him like he said he would. When we were married and he was yelling at me at the end of 2022, he would say, I will make sure that you are penniless and homeless and that you never see these children again. And he said, when you're penniless and homeless, I will then quit my job so that you're forced to put Max in daycare and work a $10 an hour job. Because I didn't want to put Max in daycare, obviously. I'd always been against daycare. He said he would make sure I was penniless and homeless and that I didn't have money for a lawyer and that he would then quit his job so that I was forced to put Max in daycare. And he took him. Hope I said enough. It's embarrassing to tell stories and go in and out of it like it's real. Like it's happening right now. I can't just tell a story and not like go into it. It's like my whole body's in it. But after I say he took them, then I can't connect back to reality. I'm gonna have to go like get back into my body because I am right now just like, he took them, right? What do you say after that? Took my kids, February 4th, 2023. Put a restraining order on me. Filed reports with the CPS and police. Didn't offer photos, phone calls, visits for a full year, 11 months until I got a phone call, over a year until I got a supervised visit. He refused to let me see them in any other capacity, never sent photos until after the divorce was finalized, so it had been a full year, no photos. I think that's all I can say at this point, because I can't think about that last year and a half. It's been a year and 7 months since he took them. I can't really think that time through without wanting to throw myself off the cliff. So I'm like, I think I said enough. I can't think anything else. I've spent most of the year and a half like this. Because I'm just trying to survive and get the kids back. And our next custody hearing is not even scheduled yet. They're gonna have a scheduling conference on September 30th. So it's gonna take a long time.